welcome to the October 5th Planning Commission hearing. I will now call this hearing to order at exactly 1 p.m. Mrs. Sparza, can we please have a roll call?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I'll take roll call. Chair Bonderson?
Yes, here.
Vice Chair Bauke?
Here.
Commissioner Boss is absent. Commissioner DeLuccio?
Here.
Commissioner Lodge?
Here.
Commissioner Wardlow?
Here.
And Commissioner Wiscombe.
Here.
Perfect. We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sparza. And with that, let's move on to our preliminary matters. We will begin with A, requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex-agenda items. Ms. DeBusk, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. We have none.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any announcements or appeals?
Yes, one announcement of an appeal. The project at 710 State Street was appealed actually by two separate entities. That appeal is tentatively scheduled for January 23rd, 2024. So if possible, I would like to get a Planning Commission representative for that City Council meeting.
And that representative needs to be someone who voted on the yes
In the
side?
majority of the motion, which in this case would be yes, to approve the project.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So Commissioner Wiscombe will be our representative. Next, we have item C, which is review, consideration, and action of the following draft Planning Commission minutes and resolutions. Since there are two, I'm going to separate the two different dates, and we will open this up for discussion. We'll start with September 14th, 2023 and Planning Commission resolution number 00723, which is for 105 Mesa Lane. Are there any Planning Commissioner comments? I see none. Are there any public speaker comments for any of the minutes or resolutions for this item?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. We have none.
Thank you. So I'm going to welcome a motion for the September 14th minutes and the resolution 00723.
I'll move them.
Thank you. Second? Oh, excuse me. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm looking for a second, please. I can second that. Okay. Next, we'll move on to September 21st. And, oh, pardon me. Yes, thank you.
I'll take the roll
Moving
call.
along too quickly there.
Thank you. Commissioner DeLuccio?
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge?
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bauke?
Abstain.
And Chair Bonderson.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And so, yes, now we can move on. September 21st, Planning Commissioner minutes, as well as Planning Commission resolution number 00823. I will begin by asking if there are any Planning Commissioner comments on the minutes or the resolution. I see no lights. Are there any public speaker comments? Mrs. Sparza?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. We have none.
Wonderful. So with that, let me welcome a motion.
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have Commissioner DeLuccio and second by Commissioner Lodge. Mrs. Sparza, is there any discussion on the motion? I see none. So, Mrs. Sparza?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner DeLuccio?
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge?
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow?
Abstain.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bauke?
Abstain.
And Chair Bonderson.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Wonderful. So now that takes us to item 2D, and that is comments from the members of the public pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. Mrs. Sparza, do we have any in-person or remote members of our community that would like to give public comment?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak on general business, that's, again, items not on today's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into staff. Not seeing any movement, so then I'll just state that we do not have any virtual participants. We did receive written correspondence from Bert Swanson, Jen, and an anonymous letter, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. Back to you, Chair Bonderson.
Thank you. That moves us on to item 3, which is an appeal item for a project located at 1830 Overlook Lane. And before we begin, do any commissioners have any ex parte communication that they need to disclose at this time? Again, I see none. So I will just introduce that the purpose of this Planning Commission hearing item is to hear the appeal from the applicant, who in this case is also the appellant. And we will do this in two parts. This hearing is to first consider the appeal denial and determine if new evidence can be considered. We'll take that motion and vote first. And if it can be considered, we will then hear more about the item. So we have Case Planner Sebastian Herricks here from the city to give that staff presentation. When you're ready, you'll then ask us for the motion, so I'll let you guide us. And the floor is yours.
And Chair Bonderson, if I may, Ellen Kokinda, Design Review Supervisor. We switched it up because procedurally, we've tested this out several times at City Council, and we'll be asking for a vote a little bit through the presentation because it's a little bit difficult to ask for information before you know anything about the project. So we think that this is going to flow a little bit better, so please bear with us, but it'll be very clear when a vote is necessary, and I could use your help when managing that later. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Kokinda. I think the explanation is very useful, and as most people know, this is the first time that we are receiving a appeal from Single Family Design Board, so it's new not just for staff but also for the commission, and we're here to help move it along as best we can. So I will pass the floor to you.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Planning Commissioners. I'm Sebastian Herricks, Planning Technician and the assigned case planner for this project, and this is my supervisor, Ellen Kokinda, who already introduced herself. So we are here today to consider the appeal of the Single Family Design Board's decision to deny a re-roof project at 1830 Overlook Lane. The appeal was submitted by the applicant Sharon Fritz and homeowner Joel Stewart, both present here today with Doug Bean, the project manager. The commission has to decide on whether to include new evidence that was not heard by the SFDB and if the project ought to be approved by upholding or denying the appeal. Now, as stated already, this is the first time an SFDB appeal is here at the Planning Commission. And for those unfamiliar with SFDB, the Single Family Design Review Board has to find that a project meets the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance to get approved. And what are the ordinance findings? Well, generally it means that a board has to find a project must show consistency with the area that it's in. It has to be compatible in size and scale. And it has to use quality material that can clearly enunciate an architectural style for a home. And these findings always need to be found by the board, even for something as small as a re-roof project. Now, the reason the project has to be reviewed by the board is because it's located in the Hillside Design District, and it's proposing a replacement of an existing roof covering with a new roof covering of different materials or color. So, for example, if a wood roof wanted a metal roof in the design district, it would need review by the board. Overlook Lane is replacing its current shingle roof with something different. They are proposing to replace the existing roof of the residence that's existing as a burnt sienna red composition shingle with new terracotta colored Spanish Brava lightweight tile. The Brava tile will surround solar panels approved in building permit BLD 2023-00193. And new composition shingles that match the existing shingles will be installed underneath those solar panels. 1830 Overlook Lane resides again in the design district in the Riviera neighborhood. The neighborhood doesn't have too much of a dominant style and has a mix of post-war homes and Spanish-styled homes. 1830 Overlook Lane here is highlighted in yellow on the left, and I've circled some of the properties that use red roofing in the area. The property circled in blue is 36 Alameda Padre Serra, just down the street, shown on the right, which uses traditional two-piece clay tile. And this is the home from street view, and notice that it's a bit higher up from the street because it has a slight slope that will come in handy later. And you can see the solar panel project already approved under a building permit. Now, solar panels are not under purview of the commission nor the design board, but it's helpful to understand that the roof tiles proposed would be built up to the panels and not underneath them. And again, that's the Brava tiles. Now, the re-roof project was reviewed twice by the board. At the initial hearing, the re-roof was denied with the caveat that a like-for-like roof replacement or clay or concrete tile roof would be supported by the board. Now, facing a denial, the applicant requested the project be heard by the full board for further consideration, which the board granted. At the next hearing, the project was ultimately denied in a 3-2 vote. And the SFDB denied the project because they could not make the neighborhood preservation ordinance findings, nor the single-family residence design guidelines for the proposed Brava tile. The tile wasn't natural enough, it couldn't hold cement mortar, and so it couldn't have those double starter eaves, randomly laid field tiles, or mortared bird stops. Now, I'm aware that is quite a lot of roofing terminology that not everyone in this room might be privy to, but I'll get to it soon. You can also see Exhibit G in the staff report for a quick reference as well, if you want to refer to that now. Now, 2 of the 5 board members found the tiles acceptable. For them, the tile could have enough Spanish roofing details to meet the ordinance and the guidelines, especially because the roof would require a costly structural upgrade to support anything heavier than what's there today, including heavier clay or concrete-based tiles. But whether in support of or against the Brava tile, the board decides if projects are okay to construct using the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance and the Single-Family Residence Design Guidelines. Now, the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance includes 9 findings that the SFDB must make for a project in order to receive approval. But the one that we're focusing on today is just for quality, architecture, and materials, since that's what the board could not find for the Brava tile. The tile's plastic-based material just couldn't show its age very well, and it didn't look very natural in appearance. And for the ordinance, the material has to look natural enough to fit the appearance of the ridgeline or hillside, and that's exactly what Brava tile could not demonstrate to the board. The tile was just too plastic and could not age like natural materials could. So while the board has to make findings required by the ordinance, the single-family residence design guidelines help the board to decide if a project can meet the ordinance findings in terms of its design. So while the board has to make findings by the ordinance, the design guidelines are a tool to help the board to decide if a project can meet those ordinance findings in terms of design. The single-family residence design guidelines covers everything from house colors to new second floors, and they have a section dedicated to just tile roof design. And you can see some of those guidelines here that the board used to help them deny the project. These criteria apply to both clay and concrete tiled roofs, and really any tile roof for a Spanish home in the Hillside Design District. Now, obviously, they're really specific and narrow criteria, and that's because of how much our city cares about keeping its Spanish look and feel. According to the guidelines, to make a Spanish-styled home keep its charm like of Santa Barbara's storied past, tiles on Spanish homes ought to show age, have some randomness, and use mortar for eaves, bird stops, and ridge lines to give as natural an appearance as possible, whatever the tile material may be. So you can see here how different a traditional clay tile is compared to the Brava plastic-based tile, and why the board denied the project. The photo on the left shows a roof downtown that adheres to the criteria in the design guidelines with classic clay C tile. And the photo on the right shows Brava tile from their brochure. And you can kind of see the ridge line there compared to Brava tile. The photo on the left uses mortar, whereas the one on the right does not. And you can also see kind of more randomness. The Brava tile on the right is very flat compared to the photo on the left. And you can also see the differences in the rakes here, which is this portion of the roof. Again, left is finished with mortar and made with natural tile. The one on the right is Brava tile. And here you can see the difference in what we call bird stops. And as the name implies, it stops birds from crawling underneath the tiles. And so again, on the left is a mortared finish, and on the right is how Brava finishes its bird stops. And finally, you can see here the lack of a double starter row for the Brava tile. And the double starter row is kind of hard to see, but this is the first row here on a traditional 2-piece clay tile. And then that's the second row. So you can see the double starter rows at the end of the eaves, and then on the right, Brava tile can only support 1, just based on this photograph here. So to summarize, because of the lack of mortar that allows clay tile to have a natural look and feel in a roof's rake, its ridge lines, its bird stops, and random field tiles, the board couldn't approve of Brava tile. The Brava tile, again, wasn't just natural enough material for the board that the guidelines highly encourage for Spanish homes. Now, the appellant believes that the board did not have to use the restrictive criteria of the residence design guidelines, as there's technically room for the board to approve any material for a Spanish home. The appellant also argued in their letter that homes in the areas use other mission tile types that don't adhere to the residence design guidelines anyways. The appellant further reasoned that though Bravo Tile could not hold mortar, it could have enough C-tile ridge lines, rakes, and deepened birch stops enough to mimic classic Mission C-tile and meet the intent of the residence design guidelines. Finally, the appellant stated that because the home is located higher up on a slope from the street, the roof would have low visual impact on the neighborhood, as it would be hard to see the entire roof from the street. Another issue is that the lightweight tile was selected for the home because the current roof structure can only support the weight of roofing that is there today. That means the roof really can't hold anything, it can't hold clay or concrete tiles, even if it wanted to. The roof would have to be restructured or reinforced at great expense to hold more natural-looking tile. Bravo tiles are lighter than shingles, and requiring concrete or clay tiles on the home would be a hardship for the applicant. So wanting to keep the home as Spanish as possible without redoing the structural support system, Bravo tile is the preferred solution for the applicant. And I'm going to pause my presentation here for a minute to explain a procedural need. So the appellant here has new evidence that they would like you to consider as part of your decision today. So Chapter 22.69 of the Municipal Code places limits on new evidence to be heard on appeal so that an appeal body isn't looking at a completely different submittal from what was submitted at SFDB for review. This section of the code allows the commission to vote if you determine that relevant information exists that could not have been produced or was improperly excluded at the SFDB hearing. Now, this information was not known or available at the time of the SFDB hearing, and it was actually acknowledged in the SFDB minutes from August 14th. So since the August 14th meeting, the applicant has produced new evidence about the Bravo Tile product and its capability to achieve specific architectural details. Now, staff is supportive of new evidence to be considered, but we will still need a majority vote of the commission for it to be discussed here. So I'll put a pause there, and you guys can make your decision.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herrick. So at this time, the Planning Commission will take a vote as to whether to accept the new evidence before we continue forward with this item. Is anyone interested in making a motion to hear more information? Yes, Commissioner Wiscombe, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in support of hearing the new evidence, and I think the reason why is a lot of it relates to why the Single-Family Design Board denied the roofing project, and this new evidence has been produced as a result of the denial. So I would make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a,
Chair Bonderson?
yes?
Before we take
Yes.
the vote, can we actually do the motion after public comment, please?
Oh, okay. Yes?
I'll withdraw my motion till after public
Yes,
comment.
and
Thank you.
the second. Okay, I apologize, that wasn't the direction that was provided to me. So
Chair-
are there any,
Chair Bonderson, may
Yes.
I ask a clarifying question to the city attorney? I'm curious because our next slide covers the new evidence, so we just wanted to make sure if we would be able to share that information at this time as part of the presentation, or if,
Yes, you may share the information. The commission is instructed to go ahead and take in the information. However, if the motion is to deny the new evidence, you are to not consider it as part of your findings.
yes, okay.
Okay.
So we will open the floor up to public comment, and I'm going to ask give back the floor to the applicant to provide more information first?
If you want to take the motion on the vote now, then, yeah, we'll just open it up for public comment
The-
specifically on this item. And
So let me ask staff, would you like to present anything further before we open the floor up to public comment?
Yes,
Okay.
we would.
Please go ahead and continue, then we'll go to public comment, then we'll go to our motion.
Excellent, okay.
Thank you. See, this is exactly the example of why everything is new to us, and we're rolling with it, so.
So to the chair and to staff, my apologies, I didn't catch that procedural thing. And to the audience, the reason we do it after public comment is to have the audience be able to actually weigh in on whether the new evidence should be allowed. So when
Perfect.
general public comment is open, then that is a topic for discussion.
Excellent.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, back to staff.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. So the new evidence specifically here is that the Brava tile, it can hold synthetic mortar, and therefore it can meet many of the residence design guidelines for the roof criteria. So that includes it can have synthetically mortared bird stops, the hips, the ridges, the double starter eaves, and also exhibit randomly laid tile, because now it can hold that mortar. And that is all, yeah, that's all to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we open the floor up to public comment, I want to ask our city attorney, is there an opportunity to ask a question of staff so that we understand detail about the motion we are going to then make?
Chair Bonderson, yes, absolutely.
Yes. I just want to ask a clarifying question. The information that we are going to see, that you consider new information, why is it new and why wasn't it provided at the last SFBD hearing?
Yes, thank you, Chair Bonderson. The reason the information wasn't provided at the SFDB full board hearing is that when the applicants came to that hearing, the previous consent hearing only requested that the tile could be permitted for replacement if it was the composition shingle tile or if it was just the clay or the concrete tile. And so when the applicants arrived at the full board hearing, some of those details with the double starter eaves, the capability of the tile was unknown at that point because the Brava tile had never been asked to do something like that before. And so when there were questions about whether or not the tile could or could not hold mortar, initially it was a no because of the material itself. It was plastic based, so it couldn't actually stick to the tile itself. And there were questions about whether or not the tile could maintain its double starter eaves with or without mortar, just if that was possible. And so at that hearing, there was a Brava tile representative who confirmed that these details were unknown and that they were willing to talk to their engineering team to get more information and see what was possible with the design parameters of the tile. And at that hearing, the board offered the applicant either a denial or to continue the project back to the full board with that new information. Now, one of the issues was that even if, with this new evidence that we have here today, even if that could be met at the full board hearing, there is still a question of whether or not the board would even still approve it because of the material and the patina of it. So the applicants decided to take just the denial so they can bring it here because the question is really the material at the end of the day, and that was the main focus. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That makes it very clear. And again, are we able to continue asking questions at this time? Okay. Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Wiscombe, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to confirm that I'm looking at page 7 of the staff report at the top of the page, and the bottom of page 6, the new evidence is. So this is the 4 bullet points of the new evidence that we are considering. You've put it on a slide here, but kind of combined it. But this is basically it, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
My presentation here is just a summary.
Yeah, okay, great, because I didn't, the double eave booster, I didn't, oh, I see that down here, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. And it seems like any other speakers we had withdrew, so I don't see any other questions. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Ms. DeBusk.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. Procedurally, I think it would be most smooth for staff to finish their presentation, for the applicant to have their presentation, and then we open it up for public comment, which could include the new evidence or the project itself.
I agree.
You agree? Okay, so that was the procedure I had in front of me, but please just let me know, when would the vote fit?
Chair Bonderson, the vote would come after public comment.
Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll open it up if we choose to continue. Excellent, I'm able to handle that. So at this time, I will ask staff, again, Mr. Henricks, if you have anything more to present at this time. Now's your turn, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. So again, what we have in front of us is details of the new evidence. And I just wanted to put on here for clarity's sake the SFDB's denial findings. And again, the project was denied because Bravo Tile could not hold standard mortar, and therefore opportunity for double starter eaves, randomly laid field tile, and mortared hips, ridges, and birch stops weren't possible. And a second part of their motion was the tile material is not a natural enough to patina like concrete or clay S tiles. And you can see that motion in Exhibit C of the staff report. And I had this as the last slide here that we're here today to consider the commission to decide to concur with SFDB's denial or concur with the appellant. So if the commission concurs with the SFDB's denial, they need to state the reasons why the required neighborhood preservation ordinance and hillside and slope lot findings cannot be made. However, if the commission concurs with the appellant, they need to state the reasons why the required neighborhood preservation ordinance and hillside and slope lot findings can be made and affirm staff's CEQA exemption findings. And that concludes staff's presentation, and we are here for any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And based on Mr. Busk's procedural direction, we will next hear from the applicant. Who would like to begin from the applicant team? Okay. And I just want to let you know, you have 15 minutes. However, if you choose not to use that 15 minutes, that's absolutely fine. You can always use the additional remaining time to your discretion at a later moment of the hearing if you would like to address anything. And if you have more than one person presenting, I'll just ask that each one of you introduce yourself. Let us know what your name is, your title, and how you're related to the project. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Bonderson and Planning Commissioners. My name is Sharon Fritz. I am the Operations Manager of Action Roofing. I'm here with Doug Bean, who is the project manager for this particular roofing project. I appreciate your being here to review this project today. First of all, I would like to thank Sebastian and the rest of the city team who has helped walk us through this project in a very patient manner, because we don't normally have to come to this level to seek approval for a re-roof project. Me? This, I'm going to go back to the first slide. We were asked to show a residence in the Central Coast that would show that this product was being re-roofed in a manner that was on a stylish home, one that was a quality product. And this is a project that was finished in Camarillo, California in May of 2023. And clearly this is an expensive home. When we went back to the Bravo Tile manufacturers, to the engineers, they started looking at different ways that we could do the booster tiles and have the eave elevated and not use the eave riser metal that would be sitting along the face of the tile. So this pushes the eave riser metal back 3 inches, and when we double stack the eave tiles, it creates that same double booster edge along the eave, like the Spanish tile. This edge along here, the leading edge, would be filled with a synthetic mortar, so it would create the look of the Spanish tile with the bird stops. After we had the meeting on August 14th, I received an email from Aaron Scholl, who was at the meeting on the 14th, and he came back and said that their engineers had determined that we could actually do the eave bird stop. We could kick up the eave fields, we could use a C rake tile, and we could also mortar pack the hips and ridges and along with the rakes, and create this design quality that they were looking for from the design review board. This obviously came in after the meeting, and so this is part of the information that came in later. This is the project footprint. You can see how the house sits in the neighborhood. This is an example of what the tile looks like in the field. This is a home in Burbank where this actual tile is installed. This is an example of the traditional installation of the rake tiles. This is an L tile on the rakes, and so this is what they want to have replaced with the C tile, and that can be done. So that is possible, and the tiles can be installed with mortar. This is another application of the tile. This is the same color, and you can see that it does actually dull down over time. It doesn't stay shiny. It's a little bit like a metal roof. They don't stay shiny. They do dull down. They just don't patina. This product will not patina, and if that's a requirement, it's not going to happen. This is the color that we've applied for, and it is obviously the Spanish tile. This is it's not a huge variation in the color, which I know is prohibited. So this also meets the criteria. If you look at the comparison of the Barral Villa tile, which is in numerous locations in Santa Barbara, this is a concrete tile on the right-hand side, and then this is the Brava Spanish lightweight tile on the left, and you can see they're almost identical. This is the project view of the home, which you've already seen. Sebastian has shown that to you. And you can see the Juliet balcony, the Spanish tile of the home, even the windows. The tile stairs, obviously, are Spanish in quality. The door, the pavers, even the color of the window frames. The backyard exhibits the same kind of Spanish style, so the Brava tile clearly fits with the architectural style of the home. I did a comparable map to the one that Sebastian did. The orange arrow is the project home. The green arrows are the mission tiles, the Spanish tiles that do not have booster tiles or mortar in the field. So they are just straight installs. There's no mortar or booster tiles in the field. The blue arrows are the ones that have the full traditional mortar in the field, bird stop, everything. This is the whole 9 yards. These two white arrows, which are 200 yards from the project home, indicate the two homes that have the concrete tile that have almost an identical appearance to the Brava tile. This is one of the houses across the street, so in the neighborhood, this is a photograph taken from the project roof. This is another home in the neighborhood, again, Spanish tile. There's a flat roof that's next door, so they're not all composition shingle roofs. There's another tile roof on the hill. There's a metal roof behind them. If you look to the northeast from the project roof, this is the view. So it has a very limited view from the neighborhood. So if you're looking down on this roof, most people are not going to see the roof, and if you do, it will just look like a Spanish tile roof. This is one of the concrete tile applications. This is almost identical to what the Brava tile would look like, and this is on 44 Via Alicia, another one at 117 Terrace Vista, another one at 506 APS. This is one of the ones that's at the end of the street, on one side of the street, and another that's on the other end of the street. This shows the rake tile eave riser. So this is a metal eave riser, so that's what it would look like if we installed it without the mortar. But we are willing, and the homeowners are willing to do the extra expense that it takes to install the eave riser set back 3 inches and the synthetic mortar installed as bird stop. Again, the solar panels will go here, and the tiles will be picture framed around the solar panels so that you can't see them. The solar panels sit 6 inches off of the roof deck, and the tile itself sits just a little under 5 inches from the roof deck, from the tile to the top. And so it will essentially mask the solar panels. This is the letter from Paul Spieler, who specified that the house would not hold the weight. It's going to cost about $100,000 to add the additional support to the house so that the structure would hold the weight of a clay tile, and that would put an undue burden on the homeowner. These are the three, as Sebastian pointed out, these are the 3 items that the Design Review Board pointed out as being their criteria for denying the permit in the initial meetings. And in regard to those, so in regard to the mortar, Brava has come back and said that they can do a mortar. It's a synthetic mortar, but it will look like concrete. It will look like a cement mortar. We can install the eave booster tiles, and they are writing a specification specifically for this project because they are very invested in getting this product into California. I mean, we've done several of them, several of this type of roofing material, not in the Spanish, but in the synthetics. We've done many of them in town at this point, other manufacturers, but this is the product that's out there. The other one was that the quality of the materials in question, the material is high quality. It is durable, you can walk on it. If anyone has clay tile and they've ever had their house tinted for termites, you know what kind of damage can be done to a clay tile when you walk on it. You have to maintain solar panels, so the nice thing about this product is that it is walkable. The tile is terracotta and it meets the California Title 24 requirements. It is sustainable, it is made from recycled materials, and it is recyclable. It comes with a 50-year material warranty. The material has been installed on some of the finest homes in California, in the country, for the past 15 years, and it's just newer in the market to this area, but it has a proven track record of being a quality product. The material cost is 3 times the expense of the most expensive readily available composition shingle. Brava tile weighs 285 pounds per square. Clay tile weighs between 1,000 and 1,200 pounds per square, depending on how it's installed with the mortar or without. The location of the home is in a generally visually low-impact area. The street is not on the beaten path. It is off the hill to try to get to it. The design of the home clearly supports the Spanish-style roofing material, so a lightweight synthetic roof in line with the approved design style of the home would not be out of order. The building cannot structurally support the traditional 2-piece mission tile, nor a lightweight concrete S-tile, and the home would have to be significantly upgraded in order to support that kind of weight at a cost of about $100,000, and that would be an undue burden on the homeowner. The way I see it is that we have 3 options. We can install the composition shingles, which don't really do that much to enhance the neighborhood and don't meet the Spanish style of the home. Or we can have the homeowners wait until they can afford to upgrade the home to put on the clay tile, which would potentially open the home up to water damage because the roof is needing to be replaced now. If there's water damage, water intrusion, it'll devalue the home. Or we can install the requested Brava Spanish tile. This type of synthetic material has been introduced into the roofing market for well over 15 years. In 2019, we won a nationwide award for a roof we did in Hope Ranch on Campanile Drive with a similar product, made out of a polymer material. It was just shaped like slate, but definitely not an inferior quality product. When I go to the trade conventions, most of the manufacturers are offering a product with a similar polymer material. You're going to see more and more of these requests that are coming in because of the quality and the sustainability of this product. Not all homeowners can afford this level of upgrade. The Stewarts have put into their home a lot of money at this point. They should be praised for wanting to go this far with their financial investment to improve their home with the work that they have already done. They should also be commended for looking forward for a long-term solution that will allow them to continue to invest in the now needed re-roof in the same Spanish style. The cost for roofing and solar alone at this point is $67,000. And now that you're talking about adding boosters and mortar, that's going to add another $3,500. So close to $71,000 just for this improvement. The kind of decision that you make today increases the construction costs in Santa Barbara and adds to the affordability issues that are here. You can be part of the solution toward keeping housing affordable for people who aren't able to invest an additional $100,000 in structural upgrade construction costs, and this is your chance to do it. So thank you for considering this application. This is the type of decision that will speak to the core and heart of affordability in Santa Barbara. The Brava Spanish tile material represents an era of using an affordable, recycled, sustainable material that respects the criteria and values of the past in the design, but also looks forward to the future. Thank you, Chair Bonderson and Commissioners.
Thank you as well. And Mrs. Barza, could you please, for the record, just tell us how much time may be left on the clock?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. The applicant has 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining.
And again, you can use that at your discretion if necessary at any point.
Okay.
So now we will go to public comment. And Mrs. Barza, could you please guide us? Is there anyone in the room or virtually who may like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip in the back of the room and turn it into staff. I believe our first speaker is going to be Chair Colas from the Single Family Design Board.
Thank you, and welcome, Chair Colas.
Can I close this? Is that okay?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if I'm limited to time. I'm just here basically to give each one of you an understanding of our thought process as we went through the decision-making process. I should say hello, commissioners. So in general, I've kind of outlined how we made our decision, and I'd kind of like to run through that with you. I think staff has done a good job of summarizing, but I think there's some nuance to our decision-making that is important for you to understand. So the first thing we did was we looked at neighborhood compatibility. We went, what does this neighborhood consist of? It's a little random, but most of the houses that are in the neighborhood that are of a mission style either have a two-piece clay tile, whether it's boosted or not, it's a two-piece, or it is a concrete S tile. So there was nothing, this is a new product, there was none of this in the neighborhood. So hard to make it a specific compatibility finding in that way. The concrete tile is different than this tile, and we did not get many photos of this tile actually installed. The mock-up that I saw the other day when I drove by was the first time I'd actually seen any examples of that. We then looked at our guidelines, specifically Section 15, which staff has put up on the screen for you. And it's interesting because that section specifically says non-clay simulated mission tile is generally unacceptable in new construction. So there was acknowledgement that there are other roofing types out there besides clay. The second bullet point says that clay S tile can be considered for affordable or low-income housing projects, which this would not be applicable for. And then the following criteria said that, the following item notes that for the use of clay S tile, it doesn't say for concrete S tile, it doesn't say for a polymer S tile, it specifically says clay S tile, that we have to meet some criteria. And so we attempted to assign those criteria to this product, but we couldn't make the finding that it met some of those bullet points. So those bullet points, there's 4 of them. The clay S tile must be compatible with the building's character and neighborhood. We could say yes to that. That was easy. The building cannot structurally support the weight of the two-piece tile. That's true. We got a letter from Mr. Spieler to that effect. Item 3 says the proposed installation is consistent with the intent of our design guidelines. So I'll go into that in a minute. And then the 4th item was that the applicant follows installation details as conditions of approval as determined by our board to make the roof more authentic in appearance. And those are the items that we've been talking about. Mortar, boosted tiles, double starters at the eaves, things of that nature. All of those items we vetted with the product representative who was present at our meeting, and they could not state that they could meet any of those detailing requirements to make this authentic. So the new information that we're receiving today could have impacted our decision, but we did not have that at the time. I have some questions about synthetic mortar. My personal experience with synthetic mortars and grouts, they're typically used in different applications, and I would be interested to know what thicknesses can be achieved with that. I think that would be a good question that you might want to consider asking the appellants. Our neighborhood preservation ordinance and the guidelines in the single family, going back to bullet item 3, we have to find that a project enhances a neighborhood. That word is specifically in there. It doesn't say that you're keeping it the same or that you're making it okay but not great. The level of criteria there is the word enhance. So the question is, do we think that this product is going to enhance the home or the quality of the home or the neighborhood? There was dissent on our board. Our decision was split 3-2. And so I would just say that there were those who thought that it did enhance and others who didn't. The question of sustainability is a good one. We are being asked as a board more and more to approve things like faux grass, basically plastic turf. This is a polymer product. So I think it's a larger, broader question. I'm glad it's before you, and I think when you make a determination today, we would be interested in some broader direction in terms of those types of items. The square rake tile on this product was a concern, I believe. I guess I would ask yourself what this would do if it would proliferate throughout our neighborhoods. The appellant themselves has said, we're interested in this market, we're vested in this market. I understand we all want affordability in town. This is a home that's up on the hillside. There's a Porsche parked in front. This is not an affordable home. It never will be. And so I don't know that that is necessarily applicable in this particular circumstance. I think that we have to think about what this would do if the gates were opened on this to our neighborhoods in terms of retaining the authentic character of our city. And it's a concern for me personally and as chair of the board. I would like to know what the thickness possibilities are for the mortar as stated. I think that will hugely affect how this reads, whether it reads as an authentic tile or not.
Thank you very much for being here to share the board's information. Next, we will go to public comment, is that correct?
Yes, I'll continue public comment. I don't believe we had any more speaker slips turned in. So turning to virtual, if there's anyone participating virtually who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, we did receive written correspondence from Chris Kruger, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. Back to you.
Very good, thank you. So now, I believe, and I will be corrected if I'm wrong, but now is the time that we will take a vote as to whether to accept the new evidence before we continue forward with the item. So at this time, I will accept a motion, and I have Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll repeat my motion for,
Perfect.
and I'll just refer to page 7 of the staff report where we list what the new evidence is and that we would accept that new evidence. Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a motion from Commissioner Wiscombe, a second from Commissioner DeLuccio, and I will open it up to the full commission if there are any questions or comments, discussion on the motion. I see no lights on, so Ms. Esparza, please go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Lodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bauke,
Yes.
and Chair Bonderson.
Yes,
Motion passes. Thank you.
thank you. So now I'll turn to my fellow commissioners for questions. Who would like to go first? Commissioner Wiscombe, please. It's okay, I got you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have many questions, but I do want, let me just see here. One question for Ms. Fritz, please. You showed us the Burrell concrete, and will that tile patina eventually?
The concrete tile does not patina.
It will not patina?
No.
Okay, so it's going to stay very similar in color to?
Stays very similar in color.
Okay. Okay,
It dulls down like any other roofing material.
good. Right, okay. And this will fade over time? The color will fade over time?
The Brava tile or the Burrell tile?
The Bravo tile?
The Brava tile it won't fade because it has a natural mineral within the polymer, it won't fade like some of the other roofing products that are out there that lose their color because they're in the sun all the time. But the Bravitile will dull down. It won't stay shiny.
Okay, and I know you said this, so forgive me for asking again, what's the warranty period?
50 years.
50 years, okay. And my last question is what Chair Kloss asked, which was the what thickness can be achieved with the synthetic mortar?
So the synthetic mortar is mixed with a grout, sort of. It's mixed with a cement product, but because it has the synthetic polymers within it, that is what allows it to adhere to the metal or to the tile itself. And so in regard to like the eave and the bird stop, because the backer metal, the eave riser metal that would normally be on the face of the tile is just being set back a few inches, that whole space can be filled. We can really make it as thick as we need it to be made. And so it's not a product that levels out. It's not like a self-leveling grout in tile for a flooring. It's an actual compound that can be kind of formed, for lack of a better term.
It could be a lump. So
It could be a lump,
it could
yes,
be
which is what
So it goes
mortar
back
is.
the 3 inches, because you've recessed that 3 inches, so it'll go back the 3 inches, and it will go to the achieved height, and it's not going to lose that height.
Right, it's not going to flatten.
Okay, thank you for that.
And if it does, we can build it up. You know, if there is any of that, we can continue to build it up. So we can do that in the application.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes. I'm not thinking in the application, I'm thinking, 3, 4, 5 years from now.
No,
if it- yeah,
no, once
okay.
it's dry, it's dry. It'll be just like mortar.
Okay, and you didn't, I know that was new to our hearing, but you didn't bring with you a sample of that today.
We didn't, and the reason that we didn't is they sent us a photograph because they actually did one roof in Florida recently that required mortar, because the homeowners wanted mortar. They wanted that same Spanish tile look. And so they sent a photograph of it, but it wasn't a very good photograph, and it wasn't very clear. You couldn't see the mortar as evident. And in the photograph that they sent, it just wasn't a great photograph, and I only had one, and we just got it. So it really didn't do anything for it. We decided yesterday that it wouldn't be worth it to bring it. So we can enhance it. We can, it's how it's installed. So we can install it with the intent of creating an identical roof to a Mission tile that has mortar. Because we just re-roofed the Santa Barbara Mission. So we know what it's like to create a roof that looks like a Mission tile. So we can recreate that with the grout.
Okay, well, it's a shame you didn't bring that photo, at least for us to see, so. Is theirs recessed to 3 inches also, the one in Florida?
You couldn't see it, they didn't show that part.
Oh, okay.
It was just a photograph of a
the-
hip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it wasn't a great photograph.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's all the questions for you. And then I had some questions for Mr. Herrick, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, what? Herricks?
Herricks,
Okay,
yes.
sorry. Thank you for that correction, Madam Chair. Let's see here. I just want you to comment a little bit. In the staff report, it said, should be noted that although non-clay Mission tile is, and I know you brought this up, is generally unacceptable in new construction, there's little suggestion of non-clay Mission tile for existing construction. So there is little suggestion. What does that mean, little suggestion?
Yes, so
Does that mean
Would
that there is some? Or,
would you mind pointing me to the page that it's on?
it's in the staff report on page 5.
I just want to look at this. I want to see where I said it.
And
Isn't it the last pair, in conclusion, although the board can technically grant?
I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. No, it's like the 1, 2, 3, full paragraph down.
Oh, it starts with, "It should also be noted," correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that I think Chair Kalas commented on, is in the guidelines, it states that for new construction, a lot of those clay tile criteria would apply to a project. However, when it comes to existing construction, that's where there's no specific direction for existing construction. So, and the interpretation there is, if you're building a new house and you're putting new tile, it should be, and if it's a Spanish house, you're going to use clay tile, if possible, concrete, perhaps. But when it comes to an existing home, this home was built in the 1970s with composition shingle tile as it was originally made. And so trying to put on a different tile type to adjust to the new style that the property owners are trying to achieve for the home, there's that little gap where it's not technically brand new construction because it's not a new home, and that's where the clarity is lacking there, and that's the place where the board, they are technically allowed to grant different material types
Right.
if they decided to pursue that route. However, I believe, as Chair Kalas stated earlier, with the intent of the guidelines, it's really trying to keep that really high-quality Spanish look that we try to achieve in the city. And that's what our guidelines try to follow. And so, yeah, if you want to
And if I may just jump in, there is discussion of existing construction, but it's just not necessarily embedded in that section. So there are other parts to the guidelines that I'd look to. So for instance, Mr. Herrick's pointed out, what is the reason this is a design review trigger? It's because we're in the Hillside Design District and that the applicant is proposing a re-roof material that's different from the existing. So they're swapping out something. And we have another point of our single-family residence design board guidelines that identifies administrative approvals, so what staff can approve. And if they're just doing a like-for-like replacement, that doesn't require a public hearing. We can sign off on that administratively. There's more oversight in the Hillside Design District. That was kind of a special provision when the single-family design board was created, to have more oversight over that area. So we have guidance on existing conditions when people are just trying to swap out the roofs, not really try to do anything new. And so when it comes to an existing residence that's proposing a new product or something other than the more traditional materials of clay tiles or, again, composition shingle roofs, as this particular home has, that's where the direction to bring it to a public hearing. So that's, it's not explicit dealing with existing construction, but again, it's another way of guidance for staff and how we address these projects.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Kokinda. It was really the little suggestion, and I didn't know, does that mean that there's some? That was kind of where I was going with that whole thing.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify that some is that in the guidelines that we have is that clay S-tile, which is that concrete tile, is a different material from the clay. Concrete
You're
is
talking about like the
permissible.
Burrell concrete?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And is that accepted by, obviously, there's examples of it here, so.
Yes, that is correct. So in the SFDB guidelines, there are specific criteria for clay S tile and as well as concrete. So,
Okay.
yeah, and that's why that little suggestion of the other material. When these guidelines were adopted, and I believe I mentioned this in the letter as well, or in my report, excuse me, that there weren't too many new materials on the market at that point, and
Right.
they weren't really considered when the guidelines were being rewritten. And so that's kind of a question that we're eager to hear your decision upon as well today.
Okay. And this, just one more question for Ms. Fritz. I'm almost done, Madam Chair, I think.
No problem.
I just keep thinking of things. When did you introduce this product? When did your company introduce the Brava tile?
Well, in the city of Santa Barbara, this
No.
was the first one.
No, just period?
But we've done.
Is it
couple
a
of
new
them.
product?
It is a new product to us. The Brava manufacturer is a new product to us.
Okay.
The
How long has
material-
it been on the market, do you know?
This material's been on the market for almost 20 years.
Okay.
But it's primarily on the East Coast. And they've just moved into the California market. However, we've done, probably for 10 years, we've been doing synthetic materials for installations in Santa Barbara and in Goleta, Carpinteria.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Didn't mean to have you bob back up again. The other thing, there's a quote in here, and Ms. Kokinda, I asked you about this at the site visits. Staff has been gauging the receptivity of new materials that Single-Family Design Board and design community find acceptable. Do you have examples of some that have been introduced that SFBD has found acceptable?
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. So what we're talking about is concurrently, we're going through Single-Family Design Board process improvements, and I know the Planning Commission is very familiar with these and a recent presentation. Right, as Mr. Herrick's mentioned, our design guidelines, when they were created in 2007 and then updated in 2011, they really don't necessarily take into account a lot of the new materials that have been introduced to the market to deal with sustainability, to deal with, all kinds of things, just, science and new manufacturing. But as part of, we described it as gauging, we have a rather agnostic opinion to this matter because we really wanted the Single-Family Design Board to discuss it. So we were very supportive of the applicant requesting that it be discussed at the full board for consideration. And as you could see, it ended up being a 3-2 vote. Other types of materials, you can imagine for decking, for instance, a lot of requests for administrative approvals. We can only approve wood decks. We have to be very limited. You can imagine there are other tech products or, synthetic wood look materials that are created for decking or things to deal with high fire issues. So we see lots of different small examples, and behind the scenes, we've been holding conversations with AIA advocacy group members as well as a Single-Family Design Board subcommittee to discuss expansion of different materials that could be added to administrative approval standards, so we don't necessarily have to bring all the re-roof projects. But in this particular instance, we're really kind of questioning the acceptability of it, and that's what we were interested in hearing from SFDB, and similarly interested in hearing from you all as a commission, and kind of think of it as, is this a precedent? So just kind of have that in mind, please.
Okay, and so it brings me to I promise, my final question.
It's not a problem.
Ms. Kokinda, do you think that if this commission upheld this appeal, that it could in some way be limited to existing conditions and not new construction? That's what I'm asking. Does that open up a, because that's pretty much what this says, generally unacceptable in new construction. And I do know that, from the staff report, SFBD has a lot of latitude in terms of, I guess, in terms of approving things that, particularly if there's financial hardships, et cetera.
So Chair Bonderson, through you, Commissioner Wiscombe, and members of the Planning Commission, I think that the majority of projects we see today are existing re-roofs. So it's already going to be an existing home. We do have a lot of new construction or demolition, new homes. That's very much a huge part of the Single-Family Design Board's effort. But I would say what you can expect is that the majority of projects for re-roof will be existing homes that are looking to upgrade. And so I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I don't know if
Yeah, maybe Ms. Ostringer could answer that question, because I think that's pretty key. And actually, the project we are, our second item here today is new construction. So,
Chair Bonderson, Commissioner Wiscombe. So your decision today is not binding on all future projects. It's just as to this specific one. So you're not tying the SFDB's hands with regards to any projects that come before it. So when you're making your motion, whichever way that is going to go, it would be, I'm sure, helpful for the SFDB to understand why you reached the conclusion you did and why you're making that finding, so that the public and them at least have some guidance.
okay, so you're saying it's not precedent setting for,
No.
okay, that's good to know. Okay, thank you. And that concludes my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Lodge, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The appellant mentioned that the Brava tile is 3 times, and correct me if I got this wrong, 3 times the cost of the composition shingles. Is that correct? Yes. Does anyone know what the cost of an authentic C-tile, regular tile roof is?
I'm hearing whisperings behind me.
They would
so
know.
You said 30.
Yeah, they will.
The Spanish clay tile installation is about $38 a square foot.
And the Brava is?
27, 29, around in there. It depends on the installation.
And the composition?
9 to 12.
Okay. Thank you.
That's why I brought Doug.
Thank you. And next, we have Commissioner Bauke, please. Vice Chair Bauke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Got a couple questions for staff. First question is, and I'm reading the guidelines. The reason why we were here is they chose just simply to do something different than the current composition roof. Is that correct? So if they would have done that, we wouldn't be here, and they'd have a new roof by now. Okay. Second question, this one's to the city attorney. The guidelines that we have before us that the Single Family Review Board uses, are they prescriptive standards that thou shall, or are they guidelines that there are discretion and latitude?
I'll let Ms. Kokenda answer that question.
Okay, so just to, I describe the guidelines as a tool to help you make your findings or not. You use the guidelines to determine whether or not a project meets the findings or cannot meet the findings. In the case of this project, really focused on page 34C of the Single Family Residence Design Guidelines, that the Single Family Design Board could not use this criteria listed in the guidelines. And some of it does describe clay S-tile installation will be required to follow standard installation details as outlined below to mimic the mission tile appearance. Again, this is the tool that SFDB uses to be able to determine if they make the findings, and they couldn't make the findings for item 3 of the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance for that quality materials and architecture.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauke. We have Commissioner Lodge again. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I forgot to ask another question, which relates to the life of the Brava tile as compared to which I believe you said was 50 years. Is that correct?
Yes, the Brava tile has a 50-year warranty. A standard clay tile also has a 50-year warranty, but there is a huge list of limitations because they won't warranty obvious breakage from foot traffic. There's that diminishes the life of the tile itself, but the Spanish tile does have a 50-year warranty typically, clay tile. It's the same
Clay tile.
warranty.
Okay.
But the Brava tile is very walkable.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, before I introduce the next speaker, Commissioner Lodge, are you sure you're done? You can always come back again. I don't mind. Okay, next we have Commissioner DeLuccio, please.
She can interrupt me if she wants. I have some questions from the applicant. She may come, even if she may come up. So help me understand this. You sort of talked about the expense of the tile. You said it was 3 times as expensive?
Yes.
Then is that S tile or the clay tile?
The Brava tile is 3
Right.
times the expense of the composition shingle tiles.
Okay, so,
Clay tile is more expensive than the Brava tile.
yeah, I understand. So it's 3 times more expensive, and then to try to come into compliance with the guidelines, it would be even more expensive. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because we're doing the mortar and the
And-
bird stop, yes.
Okay. So when you add all that up, does it come close to what it would cost to, I don't know, get the roof in structural shape in order to put the clay tile down?
Oh, no, not even close, because there's an additional $100,000 for
Right.
the clay
But
tile
even
to
though
be
you have the
installed.
expense of this product, it would not come close to, you're not going to, by structurally fixing the roof, it's not going to compensate for the higher cost.
No.
Okay. Do you feel that you've met all the guidelines now, except for the, for the look, for the aging look of it, the patina?
I believe that we are, yes. I believe that we can replicate the Spanish tile look, yes.
Except, and the shininess will go away, but it's never going to be,
It's not going to, there won't be lichen growing on it. And that was one of the things that the Single Family Design Review Board was looking for, was the lichen growth. And that's what Sebastian showed in one of the photographs, was the extreme lichen growth. And interestingly, we have projects frequently where people call us and they want to have us come and water blast that off of the roof because they don't like it. So that's an interesting piece of this, but it won't do that, and I can't say that it will. I can't, in good
so
faith.
you're
say-
saying with all this additional, findings that you found out from the manufacturer, you feel like you're making the intent of the guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, I have another question, maybe it's a staff question. Hardship, where does that fit into all this? The hardship of, obviously, it would cost $100,000, the applicant is saying, in order to structurally prepare the roof, if you're going to go with the clay tile. So how does hardship fit into this?
Yeah, thank you. So in the in the guidelines, SFDB guidelines on page 34C, you can read here that exceptions to the required use of mission tile policy may be granted if the SFD makes the appropriate findings and determines a hardship condition exists that precludes mission C roof tile use. As to what goes into defining a hardship, we have some indication in the clay S tile criteria in the following paragraphs. And let me see. The building cannot structurally support the weight of 2-piece clay barrel tile, and S tile is an appropriate alternative solution. The inadequate structural conditions that would not allow for a mission tile roof must be verified by a licensed engineer or architect, which was provided, and I believe Chair Kalas also mentioned that that was something that they were considering as well. But from there, it leaves it up to the discretion of the board to really decide what a hardship is and for them to define it and agree on it together.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other question, more for staff than the applicant. So are these guidelines are done a long time ago, in 2011 or 2007, you started in 2011. So are you going to be going back and revising these a little bit? And is there any possibility of opening up the language when you put it together, not just all these new products coming about, instead of defining products or something, some way that it can be open-ended more so that we could put more discretion into the decisions?
Thank you, Commissioner DeLuccio. So yes, that's part of our SFDB process improvements. It's not only to update the code, Chapter 2269, in order to address the design review triggers, but to expand administrative approvals and make amendments to the design, the single-family residence design guidelines. Again, all of this is part of a larger community engagement process with the single-family design board members in our design community, our architect community, to provide guidance on what is appropriate, given the context of today, as we recognize that some items have not kept up with the times. And so, yes, we're trying to create a little bit more flexibility, but for each and every product, I just want to acknowledge that I think each one should be addressed individually and have comments on that, just for, again, vetting purposes.
But have more leadway into, have that vetting process with the owners and as well as staff and the design review board also, so there's more, bring more conversation and discretion into the decision-making. Is that what you're?
And if I may just add that there are still a number of products that are very divisive the moment you bring them up.
Thank you. And before I continue, I just want to double check if anyone else would like to speak. Do we have any questions on either end of the dais? Yes, Vice Chair Bauke.
And this is a question for the property owner. They bought this property in 2012. At the time when you bought the property, what did it look like? I would like you to describe what you've done, if you could come to the podium. Because I think context in this case is appropriate.
Pretty hilarious, actually. People came and they said, "You're what? You're buying this, dump?" We had the entire exterior replastered. That was a godsend. So my vision was to have the quintessential Santa Barbara home, and it was not that. So the exterior was all replastered with cream-colored smooth plaster. The windows, we didn't change the size of the windows, but the front window, it just had those louvers on the bottom, and it was a big picture window. It was very nice, but, we put the wrought iron Juliet balcony and the French doors, and we replaced all the windows and doors inside and outside the home. It was tan colored, and around the windows and the garage door was white, and so of course we did that in the dark brown, and around the window I did Santa Barbara teal. There was not a Spanish tile in that home. There was no terracotta. It was cement, which was fine, indicative of 1973, and so we had all the saltillos put in and the Spanish tiles, both inside and outside. The backyard, I loved to garden. And the backyard was dismal, I guess, probably. We had cactus, these huge saguaro cactus everywhere. We did have the bottom of our patio, there was a Santa Maria sandstone wall. It's about 2.5 feet tall. We kept that, but we had an expansive, it looks like fieldstone put in, and we put a sun deck in the corner where there was a junk pile. And it was just a mess. And we love the home. We really, truly love it. And we would have, in my mind, it was always, we'll get a Spanish tile roof. But to be really honest with you, we couldn't afford it at that time. The roof was still good. It doesn't leak. So I said, well, we'll just wait. And here it is, 11 years later. And, we found out from an engineer that the house could not withstand a traditional tile roof. So I was told by the engineer that he had done some work at Westmont, which is right up the hill. And he said they had this old chapel, and they had us we had to take off the slate, which is very, very heavy. And they wanted to keep the chapel, the building itself, the walls. And he said, you should look into it. You will not believe, when I went back there and saw it, they got this, it's this new sustainable material, looks just like the slate. I mean, it's perfect. He goes, you should look into it. It's lightweight, and I think that they might have the Spanish tile that you want. So that's what I did. I looked into it and I found out about this product, and I went to Action Roofing, and, the engineer came back out and, said, yes, it will withstand the weight, and we're here today.
Thank
But
you.
we really did transform the house. If I'd known, I could have brought pictures.
No, you can find some of your pictures in Zello, so, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I'm just going to do one more shout out. Is there any other speaker interested in making comments?
No, I appreciate the comments and questions from my fellow commissioners.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wardlow. All right, so I will ask my questions to wrap up the question period. My first question goes to Ms. Kokinda. It's more of a curiosity, and I'm very pleased, actually, to hear that there is a behind-the-scenes process of attempting to update the guidelines and materials in the guidelines. I was curious to know, if you even have an answer, what would be the expected timeline for that to be completed, approved, and make it applicable, even if it's a phase? You might need to continue to keep going, but what do you foresee?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I think with our new leadership and our city planner, Allison DeBus, we'll be discussing that, and there are lots of different policy initiatives, very exciting ones coming. So I'm just going to say 2024 at this point, and that's really generic, but I hope to have a better outline. We'll be having a land development team oversight subcommittee, which is a city council subcommittee meeting, and on October 26th, which we'll have a quick update. I'll probably have a few more details then. Thank you.
Thank you. As everyone in the audience can imagine, that doesn't only help the Single-Family Design Board to have that update and that guidance, but also it'll help us if a project gets denied to us. So, that's obviously, just like everything else these days, an urgent matter, so I look forward to it. My next question is, I don't know if it will go to the applicant or if it can stay with Ms. Kokinda. I was interested to know the slides that were presented today with the vicinity map. I'll start with the applicant. It may come to Ms. Kokinda. The slide you presented today that showed the vicinity map and you had your arrows, it was very easy for us to understand with the photos of what those different properties look like. I was curious to know if that has been provided to the design board at any point between June 12th and then when you went back to them again on August 14th. Was that a presentation that came with you?
I believe that was part of the project, yes, the original project.
Okay, so they've seen that before. That's not
Yes.
considered new information? Okay. Thank you. I noticed that they'd talked about it on June 12th, so I want to make sure that you had responded. Thank you. And then my next question, maybe Ms. Kokinda, maybe Ms. Kalas, has there ever been any conversation of a dislike or a discouragement towards going towards the Spanish style on this house? Not material-wise, but the style itself?
Ms. Klaas, would you like to discuss that?
I don't think anybody on the board would have a propensity to dissuade somebody from going in the direction of a Spanish style. I think that's kind of default Santa Barbara, and I think we're all aware of that. Dissent typically tends to be on the other end of things if we're starting to see something that's too modern or discrepant with neighborhoods. So, no, I don't think there's any desire to dissuade somebody from doing that. I think it's just a matter of whether we can make the findings that we need to allow them to do that.
Perfect. And stay right where you are, because my final question is for you. I just wanted to ask you directly, are there any questions that you came with today that may not have been answered yet?
No, I think the applicant did her best to answer the questions about the mortar. I think it might be a little bit difficult for her to do that without a representative of the manufacturer here who can speak to the technical aspects of the mortar. But I think that she's reassured you of their intent to at least get some robust thickness that reflects what we're looking for. And that's really, in my mind, at least what we were trying to get, that and some randomly placed items on the roof as per our guidelines.
Thank you. What you just said triggered a last question. I think it's my last question. You can stay right where you are in case it comes to you, but I'll start with Ms. Kokinda. Just to be very clear on the process, after today, the project will go back to the design board for, at least for final design approval, or something prior to design, a final design? Does it return to single family?
Chair Bonderson, so generally, so this project was scheduled for project design approval and final approval because it's such a small scope of work. It's kind of all kind of collapsed into one. So I would maybe look to Ms. Ostringer, either depending on the will of the commission in terms of whether you're able to, whether you uphold the appeal or whether you deny the appeal. I wish I could give you a little bit more direction, but I assume that it would, if the project were to be approved, it may not necessarily have to go back to the single-family design board, if that's my understanding. Ms. Ostringer, is that?
Chair Bonderson, the commission has the ability to deny the appeal, uphold the appeal with certain conditions. However, what you can't do is redesign the project.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to do something, it has to be very specific as to what you're asking to be done.
So let me ask you, Ms. Ostringer, a very specific question. If we do take route number 2, which would be to add conditions, and since the mortar is of, the design of the mortar, what the mortar looks like seems to be the last piece of the pie. We didn't have a sample here today. It seemed to be of interest for Commissioner Wiscom, and it was brought up by the applicant that the photo that they may have been able to provide didn't show it the way they would have liked to see it. Could we ask for a condition that it goes back to the design board for the final approval of that mortar design to get it right?
No.
No. That's all I
But-
need to hear.
What, if that's the direction that you're going, or you're talking about a condition, it would be a very specific condition that it includes the mortar as discussed by the applicant, or applicant's agent.
Okay.
And whatever, very specific.
So we give them specific guidance of what we need it to look like to follow through with that detail of the mortar. Is
Chair
that-
Bonderson, yes.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. And that concludes my questions. I want to make sure that we can support that detail to the best of our ability. And I see Commissioner DeLucio's light on. Please.
Real quick, for City Attorney, actually, we can give direction as a condition if we uphold the appeal to have city staff review the photo, correct? That it does meet the intent
Or a
of the
better
mortar.
Chair Bonderson, Commissioner DeLucio, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Kokinda, but it doesn't require a building permit or some permit, and so that condition would be applied at the building permit stage.
Okay, so there will be a mechanism in place to, just to make sure that to verify that the correct mortar is being used.
That is correct. It would be through the building permit review.
Thank you for your follow-up, Commissioner DeLucio. I think that we're thinking the same and making sure that there is a step that allows us to maintain that type of design review or structural review. I should say design detail. Okay, thank you. So I don't see any other lights on for questions. I'd like to open the process up for deliberations. And can I just, before we call on anyone, Ms. Kokinda, can you make it clear what we are working towards here now?
Chair Bonderson, if I may ask Ms. Esparza to put our PowerPoint back on, and we have the two, this is simplified language, but if the commission concurs with SFDB's denial, you would deny the appeal and state the reasons why the required neighborhood preservation ordinance findings cannot be made. If the commission concurs with the appellants, then you would uphold the appeal. You'd need to make the required neighborhood preservation findings and the Hillside Design District's findings, and then you'd also need to affirm staff's CEQA exemption. And we can discuss more about that, or we can share anything if you have questions about that.
Thank you, Ms. Kokinda. I'm grateful that you have a slide for us to follow. So I will take deliberations from Vice Chair Bauke first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For full disclosure, everybody in the audience, I know this neighborhood very, very well. I raised my two kids a few houses down, so I know that this neighborhood probably better than most people unless you still live there. It's clear to me that we need to find a process that if people want to improve their homes, that improvements that are at least in the correct direction, in this case, trying to make it more Spanish, even though it never was, could be implemented. In this case, the roof system won't hold mission-style tile and probably not the other tile either. And I believe the hardship in this case, it does exist. I would suggest that any of these conversations be limited to new roofs that are being applied for to bring more character and enhance the situation and the architecture of a unit. I do have a question. This is one for staff. There are projects like in my neighborhood, if the duplexes in the Hidden Valley area, which were originally built with Spanish roofs, and over time, because they're rental properties and the cost of red tile roof is higher, they all start dribbling off to be composition roof. And we shouldn't lose the ones we have. I might want to start talking about that situation. But when somebody's actually trying to enhance and work towards getting a style to a house, and I remember walking through this house when it was up for sale, and I just have to commend the property owner for all her good work in making it a better place and giving it more of a Spanish motif than it had before. So I will, at the appropriate time, be willing to make a motion to approve the appeal from the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Wiscombe, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Commissioner Bauke. This isn't a precedent, but I think it's very important that we review new materials and that we look at new ways. And I appreciate Ms. Kokinda's efforts and a lot of hard work on following through with the guidelines and improving the processes that go on. I also think this is a hardship. I think it's very important to not require a homeowner to spend an exorbitant amount of money on something just to put on a new roof, which they need at this point. I can live with the no patina. I think Commissioner DeLuccio said that's pretty much the one thing that's missing from this that you're not going to be able to fix is the patina. But I have to look at the location of the home, and it's up top. You don't really see the roof that well. So, and all the improvements that have been done to date are really nice. So I also appreciate the fact that it's walkable. They're putting solar panels in. It's an energy saver, and you need to maintain them. So I think hopefully the thickness of the synthetic mortar is answered, and I think Chair Bonderson said it best, that I guess at the building permit stage that will be reviewed. But that's kind of the one missing piece of this whole thing that we wish you'd brought a picture so we'd know what you're talking about. But and I found that the photos were very similar photos to the Burrell concrete tile. So that which is installed in the city. I appreciated the warranty. It's the same, and that it's recyclable material. And one of the questions I asked at the site visit that didn't really come up today, but what's the flammability? And this has the highest rating for inflammability. So from Class A, is that right? Yeah. So for all those reasons, I concur with Vice Chair Bauke, and I can vote to uphold the appeal. And I'd be happy to second Vice Chair Bauke's motion when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Lodge, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I really appreciate what the owners have done, which has been very attractive. The steps with the tiles and the wrought iron work. However, I also appreciate the review board's desire to maintain the authenticity of the Spanish colonial roof. And there was a very striking example in the photographs of the Brava tile and an aged mission, a genuine mission-style tile roof. And it's going to look forever the same. It may lose its gloss, but there's a uniformity to it, that it's just always going to be the same. And it can't be seen from whatever the decision of the Planning Commission has made. It's not going to make that much difference, actually, looking at the house from the street, because you can't really see the roof, you only see the edge. And with the addition of the grout or mortar that the manufacturer says can be used, it will look more like the authentic tile. But I just wouldn't like to see a trend towards this, which just doesn't have. It's one of the things that makes Santa Barbara architecture special. And I would not like to see a trend away from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lodge. Next, we have Commissioner DeLuccio, please.
Yeah, I can also uphold the appeal, and I think the intent has been met with the additional information we received today, except for the patina. But we also would like to, when you make the motion, second the motion, we also need to look at the hardship as one of the findings in order to uphold the appeal. And I want to also thank the chair of the Single Family Review Board for coming out here today. I won't say your name, I'll just butcher it, but thank you, I'm very impressed. And also, I've learned something new every day, and I really like your single-family residence design guidelines. And I'm gonna throw the rest of the package away, but I'm gonna save those.
Good extra reading when you have nothing else to do, huh? All right, thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Wardlow.
Thank you. I concur with my fellow commissioners and with the appellant. The new information that was provided by the applicant, I think, adequately addresses some of the concerns that the SFDB made with respect to the synthetic mortar, as well as the ability to boost and stack the tiles. I appreciate that this seems to be a higher quality material that allows for individuals to go onto the roof and install solar panels. This seems like something that is moving in the direction of allowing us to have more affordable and more sustainable opportunities, which is a major goal of our city. And I also believe that this does comply and is compatible with the neighborhood, given the different images that were showed. And I really appreciated your comments, the woman who gave all of the speeches regarding the specifics of this, because I do think that this is part of the core and heart of affordability in Santa Barbara, and I'm excited to see, how this project works, and I appreciate the time of the applicant and all the work and efforts you've put into this, so thank you.
Thank you, and I have Commissioner Lodge's light on again. Please go right ahead.
I'm afraid Commissioner Wardlaw mentioned affordability. Frankly, I'm puzzled that the owners want to go this direction when it will have so little effect from the street. What they're proposing to do is 3 times the cost of replacing the roof with what they're putting under the solar panels. There's no affordability in this. It is 3 times, as from what, as I remember you saying, Ms. Fritz, it's 3 times as expensive as the composition shingles. And she's nodding her head. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will go ahead and go last. I don't see any other lights on. So first and foremost, I would like to mention that the slide that was offered showing the neighborhood and the compatibility within the neighborhood, I found it to be very helpful, and it demonstrates that there's enough variation of the roofs in the neighborhood in comparison to flat roofs or shingle roofs, and even what they originally had when they bought the house. I think that the Santa Barbara style, the Santa Barbara tile is always more attractive. So whether it's more costly, less costly, going in that direction definitely improves the overall look of the house, especially under the efforts, following the efforts that the homeowner described. This is basically the last step of a decade of their transition of their property. And I commend the efforts. A decade is a long time to not give up. So the overview of the neighborhood just affirms the compatibility and design guidelines compatibility that Spanish style would be very lovely here. And then the existing house is also an excellent example, I believe, that can easily be shifted away from an existing roof style, whatever that style may be, and moving towards the Spanish look, especially since the details of the house have lent itself to that Spanish style. The images that you demonstrated in the presentation, Ms. Fritz and also our staff, showing the mosaics on the front stairs, showing the upgrade of the plaster and the color of the walls, exterior walls. Everything is moving in this direction, so it feels like it completes the project. And with regard to the lichen growth or the patina, I'm not concerned with that either. There are a lot of tiles throughout our community, for whatever reason. Maybe it's because of the materials aren't growing the lichen and or the patina look, and also the fact that I personally know the cost of having to remove the lichen because my family's gone through that, and if somebody doesn't want that, it shouldn't be forced upon them. But that being said, my absolute number one interest coming into this hearing today was learning that this option that was presented has the highest rating for flammability, and we're in the fire district of Santa Barbara, the high fire zone. We're in the hillside ridgeline, and I'm very sensitive to that. I personally have been evacuated a number of times, and anything that will help save a home, I am all for it. I also am in agreement with the hardship discretion. I won't repeat the comments of my fellow commissioners. I stand completely with them. And I also understand that there is a trade-off with affordability. If you want to go all the way to the finish line with the most expensive tile, that's our Mission tile. However, this project, the roof couldn't sustain that, as the engineers have expressed deeply. And if you don't want to stay with the roof that exists, then this is a good option. And I think that as we continue to be sensitive to affordability within our community in order to improve our properties and also in the future for future growth, affordability has to be one of our top topics we have to keep considering. I also want to add, based on the board minutes from August 14th, I agree with board members Lewis and Sherry, who stated that the reason that they were opposed to the denial was because the architecture of the building already has the Spanish character that would be amplified by a similar Mission tile substitute, and that the location of the project is not significant visual impact on the public, so it warrants a special exception. I was after the site visit, I drove around to really understand better where we were. The fact that I got lost helps really define that we're not in a very public location. But nonetheless, I just want to take a moment to thank the Single Family Design Board and Ms. Kalas for being here to represent the majority vote. I understand your limitations. I understand where we need an extra, you didn't have all the information and maybe it would have changed something. We're here because there's some information after the fact, and the fact just stands that we're able to take a vote and decide we can accept that information to review more thoroughly. And it seems that all boards and commissions at the moment find themselves in a challenging position because our guiding documents are just not as current as they can be. And we don't have as much staff power as we need to keep them current as regularly as possible to help us make better, easier discretionary decisions. So thank you to Ms. Kokinda, who's prioritized that. And as beautiful as the document is, Commissioner DeLucia wants to go home and read it cover to cover, but it always has room for improvement. So thank you for taking the time and putting the attention on that as it deserves, Ms. Kokinda. So that is all I have, and I would like to open the floor for a motion. Okay, and as we suspected, Vice Chair Bauke, would you like to make the motion?
And if I need help, I will
Of course,
suggest.
just ask.
Like to move that we uphold the applicant's appeal, that the reasons are those 11 that are specified and noted, the appeal issues and on page 4 of 244, and the 4 bullet points that are on page 7 at the top of 244, and the economic hardship that my other commissioners spoke about.
Is that acceptable, Ms. Ostringer?
Chair Bonderson, yeah, I was just going to ask if Commissioner Bauke may want to affirm staff's CEQA exemption.
Yes, please add that. In fact, actually, don't we have to do that first, technically?
Technically, we
Yes,
should.
okay. Affirm the CEQA exemption.
Okay. So I will turn to Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What page are you on, Vice Chair Bauke?
Page 4 of the staff report and page 7 of the staff report.
So page 7's the new evidence.
Yes.
And page
Page
4.
4 was the appellant's list of reasons to support.
Oh,
the
right, okay.
Appeal issues.
So, appeal issues. So, is the patina on this list? Because this is the one thing that we,
No, it's not.
Okay, and would you be willing to add the hardship to?
Right.
Oh,
I think
you did.
I tried to do that, no, whether that was
Okay.
appropriate.
Okay, I was trying to follow you. Okay, so I will second the motion.
Okay, and I'm going to open this up for any comments, but before I call on anyone, I'd like to make a question to Mrs. Sparza. Since you are the one who puts all this together, I want to make sure that the motion was clear for you, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. The motion is clear. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner DeLucia, please.
Yeah, real fast. So the building, it'll go to the building department.
Who are you asking this
I'm
question
asking
of?
the city attorney or staff. It goes to the building department as far as to verify that the correct materials are being used, and then we also talked about the upgrades to the materials with the motor and all that.
Chair Bonderson, through you to Commissioner DeLucia, yes, if there's something specific that you want to add as a condition to ensure that we are looking specifically for a certain with or understanding about the material, it would be helpful to add that to the motion. And then when the applicant submits to the Building and Safety Division, it will be routed, and design review staff and zoning staff will be reviewing that to ensure that it meets the conditions.
Vice Chair Bauke, would you like some support on how we can add that?
Yeah, if there's any additional, I'm looking at the page 7, the last bullet point would be where you would want to, if you want to add anything that would, to that would be appropriate.
And I'd like to ask Ms. Ostringer, would it be appropriate at this moment to invite Ms. Collas into this conversation, since she was the one who had the most defined design direction or interest on this? That's where my comments had come from originally, was from Ms. Collas's statements.
Chair Bonderson, if you need Ms. Collas's assistance in deciding what that particular condition is, that's fine.
Vice Chair Bauke, since this is your motion, would you like to welcome
Sure.
some assistance?
If we can define to the better extent the last bullet point on page
Yeah.
7, which
Ms.
involves the issue at hand with the mortar and how it best be implemented.
I think I would just refer you to our guidelines, honestly, and just suggest that you condition your approval or uphold of what you're upholding in terms of the denial, and you condition that the applicant apply the same requirements that are in our guidelines on page 34C, section 5, under clay S tile, and it would be item 4, and it would be the bulletproof, it would be the bullets underneath that item 4, which are that there be a double starter row of, at the eaves. You can't say two-piece barrel tile because this isn't compatible with the two-piece tile, but you could say that there's a double starter row at the eaves, and that mortar be used to boost that eave condition, and that where possible, mortar also be installed on the hip and ridge tiles to reflect a more traditional installation of tile. That would be the verbiage that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to add that unless the other members of the commissions have issues with it.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great addition. Thank you very much for that. I'd just like to make sure that we specify that, because these, on page 34C, it's talking about natural cement mortar. So that we specify that it's the synthetic mortar, which is lighter weight.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And to be very clear, this condition will follow to the building department, and will it be simply noted in the documentation, or will it be followed through by the assigned planner from zoning?
Yeah, so with this approval, it'll give clearance for the building permit to go forward, and that will include their plans and the details for just what we have spoken with today that meet the conditions. In that building permit plan check, it is routed to zoning staff, and I will most likely be looking at it and verifying it, so yes.
Perfect. We're going to have somebody follow it to the finish line. That is wonderful news. Okay, so I believe we have everything we need. Any other discussion on the motion? I see no lights on, so Mrs. Sparza, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Wardlow.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio.
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge.
No.
Vice Chair Bauke.
Yes.
And Chair Bonderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-1. And Commissioner Lodge, can you please state your reasons for a no vote?
The Brava tile looks like plastic. It is plastic, and it will forever look like plastic. It does not fit with the Santa Barbara special architectural style, and that is why I cannot vote for it. the applicants have other far cheaper alternatives that they can use. Thank you.
Thank you. And since this is an appeal of the Single Family Design Board decision to the Planning Commission, just be aware that the Planning Commission decision is final. And before I close this item, I just want to say hats off. We all did a good job for our first time together. This may be the beginning of many more visits, but as we learn, we grow together. And thank you very much to staff for your patience as we figure it out up here, and for kind of rolling with the punches with us as you guys are learning as well. Thank you to Ms. Kloss for representing the board. Hopefully we don't see you very often, but thank you for all that you do for us. And that will end this item. I'd like to offer a recess. Let's do a 10-minute recess, and I'll ask everyone to be back in their seats in about 10 minutes. That is 3:10.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, we are reconvening. It is 3:06 PM, and I would like to introduce the next item, which is a new item. It's a revised project at 2315 Edgewater Way. And just please note that the Planning Commission originally saw this project in 2022. Before we get started, just a question to my commission, if anyone has had any ex parte communication that they need to disclose. I don't see any hands up or lights on, so I would like to welcome Kelly Brodson from the city here to give the presentation, and also to give us details on why this project is before us again. So the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bonderson and Commissioners. Thank you, Kelly Brodson with Community Development. This project is located at 2315 Edgewater Way. It is in the E3 Single Family Residential Zone, and it's also in the appealable jurisdiction of the Coastal Zone. It's on the west side of the Mesa, south of Cliff, and it's about mid-block between Mohawk and Mesa Lane. The proposed project consists of the demolition of the existing two-story single-family residence and the construction and a request for a coastal development permit for the construction of a 3,300 square foot two-story residence with an attached 700 square foot garage with a basement below grade and a 600 square foot accessory dwelling unit. It's important to note that this project was already approved on October 6, 2023. That project was appealed to the Planning Commission by two neighbors adjacent to the west, basically stating that they didn't feel that the project was developed with a big enough setback. They didn't feel that 41.5 foot bluff's top setback was sufficient for this bluff top lot. Staff supported that setback based on the geology report that was provided by the applicant. So on the date right before the appeals, the appellant submitted some significant amount of information, and at the request of the applicant, the City Council hearing for the appeals was postponed. And the applicants provided an addendum to the geology report, which previously stated that the original geology report stated there was no slope stability setback for this property. But when they did an addendum, they provided more conservative analysis and stated that there was a slope stability setback of 39.8 feet. So the city's local coastal plan requires that the bluff top setback and the slope stability buffer be combined, which revises the setback from the top of the bluff to a total of 81.3 feet. The applicant has now revised the project by increasing the setback to 81.3 feet from the top of the bluff by relocating the building footprint closer to the street and reducing areas in various sections of the house within the floor plan. Here's a slide of the proposed site plan. On the right, you can see that the pool has been reduced in size, and within the area near the garage and the mudroom, there's been little kind of tucks that have minimized the size of the residence to keep it out of the bluff setback and out of the front setback. And here's the previous site plan that shows the previous project closer to the bluff, about 40 feet closer to the bluff than it is now proposed. As I stated, the project also has an accessory dwelling unit, and it complies with the requirements. It's a 600 square foot residential accessory dwelling unit above the garage. It has all the required residential elements. It does not exceed 50% of the main house. The floor area is at 98%, which is consistent with zoning standards. The whole project was reviewed and supported by the SFDB prior to the last Planning Commission, and no parking is required due to the project site's location to public transit. The project was also reviewed for compatibility with the Coastal Act policies. It's not in the environmental sensitive habitat area. The project site was not deemed archaeologically sensitive. Adequate public services are provided, and the project will not block public access to the beach. Again, the Single Family Design Board reviewed the project, and it would not contribute to geologic instability as the development buffer is landward of the project is landward of the proposed coastal bluff edge development buffer. let's see. So again, as far as consistency with the coastal land use plan, the project will meet the Tier 3 of the stormwater management program. There was a stormwater management report prepared by Ashley Vance, and in order to satisfy those requirements, the project includes underground retention chambers accompanied by an irrigation pump that will treat the stormwater generated by a 1-inch storm. And the new storm drains will direct runoff from the proposed building roof areas and impermeable surfaces to these underground chamber facilities located under the driveway. There are 7 trees to be removed, palms and a eucalyptus, and there will be replaced by 4 fruit trees. All remaining trees on the site are proposed to be protected in place. Now, regarding the bluff setback, the long-term rate of retreat is 4 inches over a year. So the expected rate of retreat over the life of the residence is 41.5 feet due to anticipated sea level rise. And that will be combined with a slope stability buffer of 39.8 feet. As I stated earlier, the land use plan requires that the rate of retreat and the slope stability buffer be combined for a total of an 81.3-foot setback. And all proposed development is well out of this new revised setback. Here is the previous project, and it shows the setback of 41.5 feet from the coastal bluff edge, and this is the revised setback. As you can see, they significantly pulled it much further back, 81.3 feet from the bluff edge development setback. Again, there's several, I don't know if you recall from this site visit, I think it was Commissioner DeLuccio's first site visit with me. There was some older foundations that were there from the early 70s or prior to that even. And because they were there prior to the Coastal Act, they are allowed to remain, but they will not be able to be, fixed, enhanced to maintain the lifetime of them. And there's a condition of approval that reflects that. Again, the project went to single-family design board, and the board requested that the applicant restudy the size, the bulk, and the scale, the roof of the oval entry near the front of the house. The applicant responded by breaking up the massing and ridge lines along the west elevation, and the single-family design board found these changes appropriate. Here is some slides. This is the west elevation. You can see on the left that there at the top slide shows that there's a reduced amount of glazing on the second floor. And there's like a little covered patio there on the side that's been reduced since the original SFDB review. You can also see some revisions to the right-hand side that's facing towards the bluff on the new elevation. This is the east elevation, and again, you can see that some of the glazing has been revised, and the applicant has made some minor changes to reduce the size of the project to keep it out of the setback. And you can see that on the right-hand side of the slide. And the applicant will be able to give you more description of the changes that they made. These are the north and south elevations for the proposed project. North is facing the street. You can see the garage on the bottom, and south faces the bluff. The project can be found categorically exempt from CEQA based on Section 15303, which allows for construction of residential buildings and accessory structures. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the project, the revised project with the increased 81.3-foot bluff setback, make the findings in the staff report, and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. We do have the architect Shaheen Gavazinde from Blackbird Architects and Ken Radke, and we have the landscape architect Courtney Jane Miller, and the property owners Mr. and Mrs. Pohl are here for the project.
Thank you, Ms. Broadison. Next, we'll go to the applicant for their presentation. And just remember that you have 15 minutes. You're welcome to use any part of it later if you don't use it all. Welcome. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson, members of the Commission. We appreciate your tenacity, professionality, and compassion for all of the applicants and staff as well. We are here for the second time. We've got Shaheen Gazvinade and Pamela and Ralph Pohl, the applicants, the property owners, and again, as we're essentially bringing a revised project, I'll be somewhat concise with my description, and if you have questions, I'm happy to go further into it. Here you can see the revised view from the street. Just to bring you up to speed on the context, I'm sure you'll recognize the mesa, and the yellow circle is the site location on Edgewater. Here you can see the long, narrow property which spans from Edgewater, not too fast, from Edgewater on the inland side to the bluff. And there's a long, gentle, gradual bluff here because just the situation on the ocean side is more gradual than most properties along here. Next. Here you can see all the adjacent properties with their numbers, and 2315 is the proposed project that has been revised from last year. You can see that there's a kind of a jagged arrangement of relationships to the actual bluff edge. Next. You can see the footprint proposed here is very close to the same or similar footprint to what is proposing to be replaced, an older structure that's kind of a hodgepodge of construction and elements. Here you can see the previously proposed plan. So here I'll describe a little bit of what and why we did. The bluff edge is on the right. The previously derived bluff setback by a standard geotechnical means was at 41 feet. And so at that proposal, there was a pool spanning across in that backyard, but on the inland side of the setback. This here, you can see, is the newly reckoned, more conservative bluff top setback, which the owners have not argued with and are happy to be a part of now. It is more conservative and therefore safer for many years to come. So you can see this 81-foot setback touched the edge of the previously proposed building, and most of the pool and patio was in a newly reckoned bluff top setback. When we look at the next slide, you'll see the differences between the two projects is that the house has been moved inboard almost 14 feet by taking advantage of the diagonal sort of setback line out at the street. We have adjusted a little bit the shape of the garage and what's happening in the mudroom, and then everything forward of that, as far as the house and residence goes, stays the same. The pool, as you can see, is much smaller. It's a multi-generational family that the pools have, and the pool is certainly a part of their health and wellness regime. And that's also why the ADU is a big part of the project as well. So now behind the 81-foot setback is the patio and very small pool. We can go further into that, and you can see that the garage, which is a two-car garage with a little bit of extra space in it, is just changed the orientation of the front, and that allows the house in whole to slide further to the street and to avoid the request for any kind of modification, variance, or other special exception. You'll all be familiar, 4 of you were here last year, with the project, the site on Edgewater. This is the view from the street. Next. Various neighboring houses next. This is the house directly to the east, and the first house directly to the west that's along the street. And here you can see a long driveway that goes between the Poles property and this neighbor, and this driveway goes all the way down to the property on the bluff, the neighboring property. The existing house to be replaced. The view sort of raking along the street to the side of the existing house. This is this long, narrow driveway that goes down to the neighbor to the west. This is the existing oceanfront side of the house proposed to be replaced. Some views along through that bluff side yard. Everything outboard of that bluff top setback is essentially to remain, other than one proposed tree removal, which is this eucalyptus. There's an arborist report, et cetera. That's the same as previously proposed. Here's the gorgeous view out and a wonderful cypress. Next. This is technically the survey, and again, you can see these two setbacks in relation to the existing residence. Next. Here you can see again those two setbacks. Go to the next one. With the property lines and the adjacent property numbers, you can see this long flag driveway that goes down to the neighbor to the west, and the situation between the various structures. The existing house is proposed to just be replaced. Next. Again, this is the proposed site plan, the setback coming through here. This yard is to be reapportioned, and then the reformed garage that faces the street actually a little more directly. Next. The previously approved landscape plan at the SFDB used a palette of mostly native plantings, low water use, avoiding bringing water out onto the bluff side. Next. Previously approved extensive site drainage plan with technical measures to keep water from heading towards the bluff that we could go into at length if you'd like more information. Next. The ground floor plan, everything from here forward is the same as before. The garage has been reformed and the mudroom has been sort of push me, pull you to make it smaller. Next. Upstairs, the ADU again has also been reconfigured in order to allow for just sliding the project a little bit forward. Next. You can see this is a sort of a reinterpretation of the same roof plan that uses very traditional tile, I might mention, with interstitial sort of inboard spaces for photovoltaics and mechanical equipment so that those don't show to the outside. Next. You can see the site section. Next. This is a section through that shows the neighbor to the west a little bit higher. And here's the same elevations that staff showed. Thank you. Next. This palette of sandstone, integral color plaster, terracotta tile, sandstone accents, and just a very gentle Mediterranean palette. Next. Same elevations that staff showed. Next. And you might go back to the site plan. That's all I would say right now. We're really hopeful. The owners are really hoping to get in motion. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Next, we'll go to public comment, and I will ask Mrs. Sparza to guide public comment for us.
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into staff. Not seeing any movement on that, I'll turn to virtual. If there's anyone participating virtually on Zoom that would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Also not seeing any raised hands on Zoom, so I'll just state for the record that we did receive written correspondence from Mahesh Balakrishnan, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. Back to you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Sparza. And now I'll turn to my fellow commissioners for questions. Who would like to go first? All right, we have Commissioner Wiscombe, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the staff report and the presentation. Appreciate it. I just wanted to go, we had the arborist report in the last go-around, and are there any changes to tree removals in terms of the arborist report, or is everything pretty much the same?
That's all to stay the same.
Okay, and then we had a recommendation in the last one for tree number 8, because it was, there was a dangling limb, and the tree is listed as could potentially be a liability to the new structure. So we had made a condition of that. I'm just wondering, in the conditions of, the draft conditions of approval, did we leave that in there? And first of all, I'll ask the applicant, is that still the same case, that this tree could be a liability?
The condition of the tree hasn't changed, and we're happy to keep your same condition from
Okay,
last
but
time.
so it still could potentially be a liability to, I'm getting a nod back there, to the home. Okay.
Indeed.
Okay,
yes.
so we probably should, I couldn't find that in there. Ms. Broderson, I was looking on, there's a section on, oh, here it is. If you go to page 5 of 12 in the C of A, draft C of A, it talks about tree protection and I think a tree removal and replacement. I think that's where we put that condition, so we probably want that back in there then. And then, so you've totally moved the swimming pool out of the, so it's 81.3 feet in
Commissioner
from the-
Wiscombe,
yeah,
yes.
Okay, great. And then I think that's all the questions I had. I wasn't clear on the swimming pool because it was hard online to look at the drawings. I don't know if they had been updated or what the deal was, but I had a hard time with that, but you made that pretty clear. So that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Lodge, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Radke, can you briefly summarize when you say it was more conservative assessment the geologic study made, what the major issues were, and then related to that, it looks as if a lot of your neighbors would not be allowed to be built where they are now, if that is to hold for all of your neighbors.
Commissioner Lodge, members of the commission, yes, that's the question that was the crux of a lot of heartache for our team and our clients and the property owners. There were peer review geotechnical reports put in by the appellants from the last project, and we wouldn't be able to comment on the impact of this report on others. We've simply accepted a more conservative geotechnical report that allows the project to and responded to it in order to move ahead.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Lodge. Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner DeLuccio, please.
Just 2 brief questions. You're removing 7 trees and replacing with 4. Can staff help me understand this? It's not equal number we removed to replace with equal number of trees?
Chair Bonderson and Commissioner DeLuccio, I think the trees that are proposed to be removed are not native trees, but I can let the landscape architect.
Courtney Miller, landscape architect, as you know, I think.
We've met.
Yes, so we're removing 7 existing trees, keeping 5. and then we're proposing 8 new trees on the property.
Oh, okay, so.
So
I-
the nuance of that in the last hearing that we went through is technically fruit trees do not count for the 1-to-1 replacement requirement. And so, that was something that the commission weighed in on the last time we were here, and they were, at that time, you were comfortable with it. And we have 5 fruit trees, 1 olive tree, and 2 cypress proposed.
So you're removing 7 and replacing with 8? Is that what you s-
Correct.
Okay. I didn't see that in the staff report, so thank you for clarifying that. And I'm just curious, what is the width and depth of the lot? It's pretty narrow, isn't it?
It's 50 feet wide,
50 feet wide, and how deep is it?
48 feet wide, sorry.
It's 48 feet wide, and how deep?
48 feet wide and something like 320 feet
Pretty
long.
deep, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLuccio. And I don't see any other lights on, so I'm going to assume there are no further questions. But I do see, is it Ms. DeBusk?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Wiscombe's question. You're correct that we inadvertently left out one of the conditions that had been added last time, and I'll just read the language for you. It goes under the tree protection measures condition, and it said, "Tree number 8 shall be assessed by an arborist during construction with steps taken to reduce liability to the building if deemed necessary."
Thank you for that, Ms. DeBusk. And I'm assuming that that could very easily be transferred into the continued conditions. Thank you. Okay, so next I'll open the floor up. I don't have any questions myself, so I'm going to open the floor for deliberations. And if any of my colleagues would like to speak, please hit your light without hesitation. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just kick it off. I truly appreciate, this has been on City Council's appeal list for quite a while, and I imagine when the documentation came in for the appeal, I don't know about you, but my mouth dropped open, and I really appreciate the fact that you've worked through with this and you've satisfied the appellant, who wrote a very nice letter that we received, or email that we received. So, and you've thoughtfully revised the project to I hopefully make it work for your clients and make it work for the appellant. So, and I think that's remarkable. That doesn't happen very often when it's such a big difference. I mean, you've basically doubled the size of the development setback buffer. So I am happy when the time comes to make a motion to, for the findings and, which are here somewhere in this thing, and an issuance of the coastal development permit for the revised project with the added condition that Ms. DeBusk just discussed about tree number 8. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner DeLuccio, please.
I can also support approval, obviously, and you've actually taken a conservative approach at this point, and you're very creative about it. So I commend the applicants as well as the architect, and so I'm ready. And I'll second your motion when you make one.
All right. Any other commissioners have anything to say? Commissioner Wardlow, please.
I'm very excited to see this project move forward, and I really do love this property, and I remember the first site visit, and I'm excited for you guys, and thank you for working to really accommodate and address the concerns, so thank you.
And I suppose I'll close deliberations by simply saying that I can also make the findings. I'm happy to approve the project today. It was lovely the first time around. It remains lovely. I appreciate how hard your team has demonstrated cooperation and to work together to meet the appellant's desires, for lack of a better word. And I hope that the homeowners will be happy with the changes. to the best of their ability, but I'm glad that we're in a position to be able to move the project forward, and I certainly hope that it will be smooth sailing from here forward. May I ask now for a motion? Commissioner Wiscom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will make a motion to make the findings, which are item number 10 on page 11 of our, page 11 and 12 of our staff report. Finding A, which is the CEQA exemption, and finding B, which is the coastal development permit, consistent with the California Coastal Act and the city's local coastal plan. Thank
And
you.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any discussion on the motion? I see no lights on, but Ms. DeBusk, would you like to add anything?
Thank you. Through the chair, Commissioner Wiscom, did that include the
Oh, I'm
condition being
sorry.
brought back?
After all my hoopla, I actually forgot to include it. Yes, including tree number 8 in the conditions of approval. Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Is it now clear, Ms. DeBusk, you have everything you need for us to take a vote? Okay, Mrs. Sparza?
Thank you, Chair Bonderson. I'll take the roll call vote. Commissioner Wiscom,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio,
Yes.
Commissioner Lodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Wardlow,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bauke,
Yes.
and Chair Bonderson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Wonderful. And even though this was an appeal, there remains an appealable period, so this decision is again appealable within 10 calendar days. Hopefully, we won't see you again, and wish you well. That closes this item, and we will conclude today with our administrative agenda. Are there any committee or liaison reports? Oh,
Thank you
pardon
all.
me.
Just as always, members of the commission, thank you.
Thank you as well. May I ask my fellow commissioners for any reports that they might like to present? Commissioner Lodge, please.
Thank you. This isn't a regular liaison report. However, last meeting, which was a special meeting to observe the 100th anniversary of the Planning Commission, which the first meeting was exactly 100 years from that date, which I didn't note, September 28th. And at that meeting, I had wondered what the status of a proposal that had been made in 1924 for a roundabout at Los Patos Way and East Cabrillo Boulevard was, but I hadn't gotten a response from staff at the time. Well, Tuesday, there was a report on all the projects that were underway before the city council, and one of them is the roundabout. It is expected to be completed in 2024, 100 years after it was proposed.
Mr. Busk, do you have any other updates on that? I'd love to hear more. This is very exciting. You know, we don't get enough opportunity to discuss humorous things up here on the dais, but Commissioner Lodge, thank you. Thank you for providing some, it's not meant to be comic relief, but it certainly was a pleasant thing to hear.
Oh, and construction is expected to start late this year.
All right, in celebration of 100 years, fantastic. Okay, any other committee reports? Not today. All right, well, that allows me to conclude the October 5th Planning Commission hearing at 3:40 p.m. And our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for next Thursday, that's October 12th. And I look forward to seeing you all. Have a nice day.